track is just a little bit further that way. And here on the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival preview show, we're going to go through some of the main races over the next 3 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday make up the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival at Del Mar. Let's take a look at the stakes that will be scheduled over those 3 days. We get right into it on Friday with the highlight being the Hollywood Turf Cup. And then you look at Saturday, we obviously have a highlight with the Hollywood Derby and so many great races there, but don't forget about the undercard. Even on Sunday, we have a race on the dirt, the Grade 2 Bayacoa, but the highlight that day will certainly be the Matriarch. Lots of graded stakes opportunities, more than anywhere in the country over the next 3 days here at Del Mar. And joining me to talk about some of the highlights, Christina Blacker and Joaquin Jaime. And Joaquin, did you set your alarm for today's show?
I did set my alarm for today's show. Speaking of alarms, that's why I'm joining you live, Todd and Christina, from the Solana Beach City Hall. We got fire alarms going off right now at our hotel. Non-emergency situation. It's just one of the glitches that they told us that's happening right now. So it is what it is. But hey, we're talking the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival.
Okay, let's talk about the first race, Christina, the Hollywood Turf Cup. It's almost like the Breeders' Cup Classic from this sense. We've got the top 3 finishers from last year coming back, led by Truly Quality, who won this race last year.
Yeah, that's right. And Jonathan Thomas had a very strong turf festival last year. He's already gotten off to a pretty good start at the meet here so far with a couple of wins from limited starters. And I think Truly Quality is the horse to beat yet again. You mentioned he's the defending champ in this race. In 2024, he's going to rally from off the pace for this victory. Balnikov will chase him home. 911 Turbo will chase him home as well. And I think he's continued on some good form. You know, I know the San Marcos wasn't really his day at the mile and a quarter, but the good listed turf course may have caught up with him back in February. That race was preceded by and followed by a layoff line. His return effort at the mile and 3/8 in the Del Mar Handicap, he was only beaten a half length. It's interesting that they are going to take the blinkers off. Sometimes I think when you change things on an older horse where things are still sort of working, that does worry me a little bit. But I think he ran his race last time out. He's a true 3-turn horse. So I will go back to Truly Quality. And nice to see Nick Rittamuro getting some opportunities for the Jonathan Thomas barn.
Joaquin Balnikov was second last year, and if you look at his prep race coming in this year, he's also going to take along with him one of the horses he beat last time out, and that is Flashing Through second. How do you feel Balnikov is coming into this year's race?
I think Balnikov is coming into this year's race in as good as form as he has. We just showed you the backtrack from the Hollywood Turf Cup a year ago. It was True Quality beating Balnikov, but he was only better than him by a half length. In True Quality, he actually got passed in the stretch by Balnikov and then re-rallied to go ahead and get him. Different season for True Quality this year versus last year. Balnikov, I just feel that after he got the frustrating in the Del Mar Handicap, he had a poor performance that day, slight trouble early. I don't know if it was that big of a deal, but the 2-month frustrating coming back in that allowance race where he was much the best. To me, he's coming in the best of form once again. And I agree with what Christina said with True Quality, where he's a true 3-turn marathon type horse, at least out here in Southern California. I feel like that's the same for Balnikov. I feel like this year's edition of the Hollywood Turf Cup, they're going to be side by side once again in that final 16th of mile. Who kicks home best, we will see.
No 911 Turbo for either of you?
No. I think it's True Quality or Balnikov in here.
Yeah, I mean, 911 Turbo just doesn't win races. He's 0 for his last 10 over the last couple of years. Just been a long time since he's had his picture taken.
Okay, Friday, getting the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival off to a tremendous start is the highlight. It is the Grade 2 Hollywood Turf Cup. Let's turn our attention to Saturday, a number of stakes races on here. But we're going to start with race number 5 on Saturday. It is the Seabiscuit Handicap, going a mile and a 16th on the turf. Let's start with Almendares and Cabo Spirit, who met last time out coming into this race, Joaquin.
Yeah, you have your second and third place finishers. Cabo Spirit was the runner-up. Almendares was third this day. You know what surprised me about the performance from Cabo Spirit in the City of Hope was the fact that Mike Smith eased him back and he rated this day. It was a really good performance. There was some other speed in there. He didn't want to be part of that pace scenario, Christina. Cabo Spirit was able to sit just off the pace. Good second place finish. I think Rispoli, who takes the reins now for Georgie P, can at least have that idea in the back of his mind. And then Almendares, he comes off a third place finish. he still ran pretty well. He's another consistent type. So I thought both of those horses, even though they lost, they still ran well, finishing second and third.
Yeah, they really did. And with Cabo Spirit, I like what you point out there about the fact that he was able to rate. And I thought that Mike Smith moved a little early in that last race, but it was by design. He was trying to get the jump on Johannes. And if you're going to beat a horse like that, you had to try and outmaneuver him tactically. He gave Cabo Spirit every opportunity to win that race. He was second. He finished ahead of Almendares and everybody else in the City of Hope mile. And it'll be interesting to see what happens between Cabo Spirit and then my husband trains El Patente, the 5, who returns off a pretty significant layoff. Both of these horses have similar styles, but they've also both proven that they can rate and that they can relax. I would also categorize them both as milers, and we're going a mile and a 16th in here. So pace-wise, I think they both want to be pretty forward, but they don't want to go too quick because they are trying to get that extra 16th of a mile.
Christina, which Sumter are we going to get in here? Because Sumter was brilliant last time out. He won at a mile, going 132 and 2. That's how good he can be. And then he can be mystifyingly average. Are you concerned that he was too good last time out and might regress in the Seabiscuit?
I think there's definitely a concern that he could regress, but if you want to look at the positives for him, if you just kind of ignore his recent sprint form, I know the Seabiscuit last year in November of 2024 was not his best race. He just didn't show up at all. But prior to that, in the Lure, same race that you're looking at here in 2025, he fired another really big race at the mile. I think what's key for him is he just needs that really hot pace to run at. And he got it last time in the Lure with his stablemate Goliad running off in the early stages, setting it up very well for him. I don't think he's going to get that kind of blazing fast pace where the front runners are going to come back to him. He might get a quick tempo. I don't see them going 22 and 3, 44 and 4, but horses like Cabo Spirit, horses like El Patente, they aren't going to come back to Sumter. I do think we get the better version of Sumter, but we'll see if it's enough to catch some of those front runners.
Christina, we're going to absolve you from making a top pick in here. We know you're cheering for Dan's horse, El Patente, who has a big chance. Any independent observer would say that. So, Joaquin, who's your pick for the Seabiscuit Handicap?
Well, of course, we're rooting for Christina and Dan in here with El Patente on the comeback. I like Sumter in this spot. This was a big win for him that you guys were just talking about in the Lure Stakes. I remember talking to Mike Smith prior to that race, and I said, what's going to be the plan in here? And Christina mentioned the stablemate Goliad, who was running in there on that day. He said, look, I'm not going to be on the front end with Goliad this afternoon. I'm going to sit back and relax like I did a year ago when he won the Lure Stakes. I think he's going to go right back to that and sitting just off the pace. Yes, they're not going to go crazy in 44 and change, but he is going to be close. He's going to get the jump on the closers from the back of the pack. That was a big performance last race by Sumter.
Saturday, race number 5 for the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival. It is the Grade 2 Seabiscuit Handicap. Let's talk about younger horses here. Race number 7 on the card is the Jimmy Durante going a mile on the turf on Saturday. This for 2-year-old fillies. And when we start with this race, a horse that lightly raced most of them anyway, but Hypergamy does come in with a pretty good resume. It took her a little while to break her maiden. She did it most recently in her 4th start. But prior to that, Christina, she had been facing Stakes Company as a maiden. Is she one of the deserved favorites in here?
I think she is based on her last race, and we'll take a look at that right now. This is November the 9th. It does bode well for her that it was over this course here at Del Mar. She'll go gate to wire. She was 2 lengths clear across the wire. She earned a 12 on Thorograph. That is definitely one of the fastest numbers in this field. I wonder which version of Hypergamy we get, because in this race, she looked very, very good. In the effort 2 starts back at Santa Anita, she looked very average, but her races at Del Mar all seem to be her better performances. She debuted, she finished 2nd here. She was 3rd in the Juvenile Phillies Turf back in September over this course, and then the race that you're looking at. I think we get the better version of her coming up on Saturday, and I do think she's a win candidate in this field.
So we got Hypergamy off a maiden win, and Joaquin, we've also got Latte Love off a maiden win, but her resume is much different. She started out on the dirt sprinting, and then when she stepped on the turf, this is the effort here, she broke her maiden, dominating this mile maiden special weight event. Lightly raced, is this too much too soon?
No, I don't think so. I think nowadays this would probably be the logical step to jump into a stakes versus, say, a first level allowance. So you have a lot of lightly raced horses in this particular spot in here. I think it's going to be very straightforward for Mirko de Miro. Big field. He's got a filly that has some speed. He has the rail. He just won in wire to wire fashion. So I certainly think that he's probably on one of the quicker fillies in here. I don't want to hold her dirt race against her. She was well behind Explora and Rivera. Explorer won the Oak Leaf, nearly missed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Rivera came back to win the Desi Arnaz. So tough competition and probably not her best surface first time out. I liked her maiden win. Set decent enough fractions out there on the front end and was still pulling away from the field late. My favorite part of that backtrack was probably the final 16th of a mile, drawing away from her competition.
Christina, Latte Love and Wild Like the West to me look a lot like each other. They both started out sprinting on the dirt, then that first stretch out of the turf resulted in the maiden win. If we're taking a horse that has a similar resume like that, are you looking at Latte Love on the rail, or do you like the 10 Wild Like the West?
I respect them both. Joaquin talked about the filly at the rail. With Wild Like West, I appreciated the step onto the turf course, the fact that she moved forward quite a bit in this race that you're looking at. I don't know if she's fast enough, though, and I don't know if Latte Love is either. I think they both need to get a little better if they're going to compete with some of the other horses in this field. I would be looking to a horse like Sweet Little Lila, who's actually cutting back in distance off that mile in the 16th effort last time out. I think the cutback really helps her quite a bit. She was shuffled so far back in that race that it was difficult to make up the ground she needed. And she was third in the Salima behind Ultimate Love, who at the time was undefeated coming into the Breeders' Cup. The filly that beat her last time out, Sweet Little Lila, Candy Moonshine, she came back to run third in the Chelsea Flower. The winner of that race, Deep Learning, is a very highly regarded filly for Chad Brown. They actually sat out the Breeders' Cup with her, waiting, looking forward to her 3-year-old season. My husband does have a horse in here as well. C. Drew is 20-1. She's a Calbridge. She needs to take a big step forward, but I think the horse to beat is Special Wood is the 2 at 8-1. I love what I've seen from her. I know she was 4th in her last race. It was over a soft listed turf course. I'm willing to draw a line through that one. I do think she's going to appreciate the ground that she gets at Del Mar. And she won over a soft listed turf course in her debut. But if you watch that race, she was on the near side, and it was very clear that that's where the ground was more firm. When she can hear her feet rattle over the turf course at Del Mar, she's going to fly down the middle of the track.
All right, we know where Christina stands in the Jimmy Durante. Where are you, Joaquin?
I'm going to stand on that same platform as Christina. I like the horse making her U.S. debut in here as well. I'll take the 2 in Special Wood, who's going to be making her U.S. debut. I feel like they've had their eye on this race for quite a while. She was cross-entered in their Wait a While Stakes at Gulfstream Park on Thursday. That race came off the turf, moved the all-weather. She scratched out of that in favor of this particular spot here. This is the first runner at Del Mar for trainer Tom Proctor since the summer of 2023. He just doesn't come out to Southern California and Del Mar very often. So I'm paying attention that when he's coming out here, him and his team, they mean business. I feel like they've had their eye on this race for quite a while for Special Wood to make her U.S. debut.
Are we allowed to play Taylor Swift on social media shows?
I think so.
That? We've got it. Will we get in trouble for this? Can you hear this? That's our pick.
I just love the beach. I just have to tell you, we talked about where the turf meets the surf. This morning is absolutely gorgeous. You got the dogs running all over the beach. That's sometimes a hassle. But behind me, we have the surfers out there, and there's been a pod of dolphins who have been interacting with the surfers. So almost everybody's lined up along this stretch of the beach to try and get a picture of the dolphins who keep breaching straight out here. If you have not been to Del Mar, be it the summer or the fall, you need to make it here and experience why it's so magical where the turf meets the surf. Take in the beach, go to the races in the afternoon. And there's time to come out for the Turf Festival, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's talk about the biggest race on Saturday. It's truly one of my favorites for the Turf Festival, and that is the Hollywood Derby. Race number 9 on the card on Saturday is the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby, going 1 1/8 on the turf, obviously restricted to 3-year-olds. Graham Motion has had such success when he comes to California. He's a consistent supporter of the stakes program out here. He is a constant presence at the Turf Festival. He's back with Test Score, who actually came in early, took the Grade 2 Twilight Derby over Nas, and is now trying to take the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. First of all, what did you think of the Twilight Derby and our top two finishers that day?
I thought Tesco ran very well. I thought Maz ran very well in defeat too. The difference for Tesco was the fact that they added blinkers to him for the very first time. He was able to sit just off the pace. Yes, it was a small field. The pace wasn't very fast, 47 and 4.5 mile. But I really liked the way that he finished that race off in the final furlong or so. He's looking for back-to-back wins in this spot. He's had a very good career, 4 victories, 11 starts, multiple graded stakes winner, 9 furlongs is zero issue for this guy. I like the fact he's not going to be on the lead. He's going to get the jump on the closers in here. I like Tesco in this spot, Todd, to make it back-to-back wins.
Yeah, Christina, it's hard to argue with what Tesco has done, particularly at the distance of the Hollywood Derby, the mile and a half.
It is 2 for 2 at the distance, and there is really nothing on his resume to knock at all. You have to appreciate everything that you've seen from Tesco. He's durable too. He's 4 for 11. He's had a strong campaign, and he continues to fire every time that they lead him over there. I did think there were some other horses in here. You know, you have to consider Salamis, the 4. I think he's moving forward. Some horses just don't really like the turf course at Keeneland, and if I'm looking through his races, I just think he hasn't quite been his best when he's over that course. He was 5th last time out in the Bryant Station, beaten 2 lengths. He was very wide. He moved a little early, and then he was just sort of in the late stages. But those races, Belmont at Aqueduct, Saratoga, even his Gulfstream form. Joaquin points out Tesco will get the jump on him, but Salamis does have a nice late kick. I also wouldn't count out Tempest Filat. I think he ends up with a really nice trip in here. He's going to sit the trip off of a couple of other horses. You'll see Friendly Confines coming out of this race as well. The only thing that worried me a little bit about Tempest Filat is that he didn't switch leads in this race you're looking at in the Let It Ride. I didn't really think Mirko de Muro was wrestling him for it. He wasn't trying for it. He had enough, momentum to just kind of keep on going. But anytime I notice that, I just consider it, because some of those little sort of bad habits that you might not get 100% out of a horse in a race, he could get away with it in the Let It Ride against Restricted Company. You're not going to get away with something like that with horses like Tesco or like Salamis. So I give Tempest Filat a look, and I think trip-wise, he kind of trips out in here. Also, wouldn't forget about Tom's Magic. I don't think we know how good Tom's Magic is just yet. And his last race in the Breeder Stakes up at Woodbine was very impressive at 1.5 miles. And he's cutting back in distance. He has so much bottom, so much foundation. And he's proven himself to be pretty versatile as far as the pace goes. I think he wins this race with a lot left. He does need to step forward. But again, I don't know if we've seen the best of Tom's Magic, and maybe we'll see it over the turf course at Del Mar.
Joaquin, how do you feel about Tom's Magic shortening up from the 1.5 miles?
I don't think it's going to be an issue for him. His only bad race was in the Transylvania Stakes earlier on in the spring during his 3-year-old season when Tesco got the better of him, and he was just no match for him. I don't think that's the true Tom's Magic. If I draw a line through that race, every single one of his other races, all 6 of those starts, he stacks up with all these contenders in here and is still a win candidate for the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. Just for whatever reason, I don't have an excuse for him, at least on paper or anything I could see in the Transylvania. I just know that's not who he is. He's a much better horse than that, and he's coming off a victory going 1.5 miles in the Breeder Stakes to take down the final jewel of the Canadian Triple Crown. He's just been much better since that Dolt performance. I have a feeling Tom's Magic is going to run a big one in here as well.
Okay, so bottom line, top picks. Where are you going to end of the Hollywood Derby, Christina?
Salamis. I ended up with him. I had the hardest time with the Hollywood Derby out of all of the Turf Festival races. I would not be surprised to see Tesco win, but I ended up with Salamis as the top pick.
We all know Dave Weaver will keep referring to that horse as Salamis. All right, Joaquin, who you go with in the Hollywood Derby?
I think 2 starts back and 3 starts back in the Nashville Derby and the Saratoga Derby. I think maybe just a little bit too far for Tesco. He loves 9 furlongs. He's going to get a perfect trip under Juan Hernandez. I'll go Tesco in the Hollywood Derby.
On a Saturday for the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival, and then there is more on Sunday. It is the final Grade 1 race of all seasons at Del Mar. Race number 7 on the card is the Grade 1 Matriarch, a mile on the turf for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. A lot of horses to talk about in here. Some of them very similar to each other. You take a look at a horse like AG Bullet. It's not her ideal distance, although she has been able to win at a mile. You take a look at a horse like Spicy Bug, who seems to be best as a turf sprinter, but can get the mile under the right circumstances. Let's start with AG Bullet because of her resume. She's coming out of the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. How do you feel about her going the mile now in the Matriarch?
I don't have an issue with her taking on the mile again. I think she's proven herself at the distance, albeit against maybe some softer company. She actually ran in this race last year in the Matriarch. She was third beaten a length to Sacred Wish, Gina Romantica, some Chad Brown runners shipping in from the East Coast. And she had a more demanding campaign going into the Matriarch last year. If you look, she had really been on the go, really since the summer. The Osanitas, the Ladies Turf Sprint at Kentucky Downs. She ran in the First Lady. And then that bang up third place effort, only beaten a neck in the turf sprint last year. She came back in the Matriarch and fired a good shot to finish third. This year, she's had a little more time between some of those big races. We saw the win in the Jaipur, the win in the Ladies Turf Sprint at Kentucky Downs again. And again, I think she ran a race in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. She's So Spicy was just too good that day out on the front end. She is consistently faster, AG Bullet, than she was last year. She's run a 2 on Thorograph in her last 3 starts. She's very, very steady in her form. All that said, I did pick against her. I ended up with Ozara in here for Miguel Clement. I think she's another one that, similar to Special Wood, this is a horse that's really going to love Del Mar. She's a little smaller. She has a nice turn of foot. She's very handy. Great kick that you're going to see right here in the Boston Spa. She clearly loves Saratoga. She's run some of her best races out there. But in the First Lady, I thought she kind of got crowded and bumped around a little bit. And that really didn't serve her well. She didn't rebound from that trouble. She does need a clean trip. She needs to be out of trouble as much as she can. But I think if she gets that, she's going to appreciate the turf course here in Southern California.
Joaquin, Miguel Clement has not only Ozara in this race, but an interesting look at a price in Breath Away. She actually did race on a Breeders' Cup Day, but on the undercard. She was in the Goldacova. She ended up finishing in there rather well at 11-1. Do you think he had in mind that he was always going to be in the Matriarch with Breath Away, or do you think that effort in the Goldacova convinced him, why don't we just stay out here and take a shot in the Grade 1?
Well, she didn't necessarily stay out here because she did go back to Belmont Park in New York and work there. But to your point, I understand what you're saying that, okay, look, we just ran well going 8 furlongs in the Grade 3 Goldacova. Okay, let's keep an eye on the Matriarch towards the end of the month and see how she does. I don't think the Clement team would be coming out here if they didn't have full confidence that she was going to fire in her race once again. The concern I would have with Breath Away would be the fact that she really does not have that much early speed. She won a stakes race at Monmouth 3 starts ago. Then she won the Grade 2 Dance Smartly that we're looking at here, going a mile and a 16th. She's going to need some pace to go ahead and run into. She does have a very strong kick in here, and she's just going to get up by a half length. But I feel like she might just have a little bit too much work to do with some talented horses that are going to be in front of her in the Matriarch.
Okay, what Bob Baffert is to several graded stakes races in Southern California. Chad Brown is to the Turf Festival, and particularly the Matriarch. This is a race that he points towards. He's had a lot of success in. He's got Suggesta in here for Judmine. Christina was talking about the First Lady, where a lot of horses are coming out of at Keeneland, but she was second beating the neck on that day. She's ultra consistent, maybe more seconds than you would like. What do you make of Chad Brown's entrance, Joaquin?
I like Suggesta in this spot. You have siblings actually running in the FanDuel Racing Turf Festival. Suggesta's a sibling to Salamis, who's going to be in the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. All right, so let's review what Suggesta has done in 5 starts this year. She came off the layoff, ran into She Feels Pretty in the Modesty. She got boggy ground in the Grade 1 Just a Game. I don't think she liked that. She comes back and wins the Matchmaker. She just misses the Special One, who won the Goldacova Stakes, that we were just talking about on the undercard during Breeders' Cup weekend. And yes, I understand that the Miguel Clement horse had some trouble in the First Lady. I don't know if she was still going to win. She might have been closer. I don't know if she was going to win the First Lady. Suggesta ran really well there, Todd. She just missed by a neck. She's going to get a good stalking trip under Flavien Prat. So I like Suggesta in this spot in the Matriarch.
Christina, who's your pick for the Matriarch?
Well, I don't know. I thought I felt good about my pick, and then Joaquin might have just talked me into Suggesta. I picked Ozara. I think she's going to appreciate Del Mar, as I mentioned. And yeah, I'm hoping she can rebound a little bit, but fair play. Suggesta did finish in front of her in that last race. She has quite a few lengths to make up on that rival and all of the others, but I went with Ozara coming into today.
The FanDuel Racing Turf Festival, what a way to end the Bing Crosby season at Del Mar. 3 days of outstanding graded stakes action on the turf. And Friday, they will have a first post of 12:30. Don't forget about the early post time on Saturday with a longer card. And then we have that closing day program highlighted by the Grade 1 Matriarch on Sunday. FanDuel Racing, very pleased to partner with the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club to bring you on-site coverage both during the summer and during the fall meet. And we are proud to be the presenting sponsor of the Turf Festival. For Christina Blacker, Joaquin Jaime, the Zenyatta Mafia, Emily Shields, who put this show together, I'm Todd Schrupp. I'll take my office over your office from the beach at Del Mar. Until